I want to talk a little bit about our philosophy, and I'll talk about that in more detail, but this is what was said before, that there's so much information around us, and it's really hard to grasp it and to find the right information that is important for us. And I think that design can do that, can help us find that right information and make it better readable and better understandable. And when I talk about information design, I'm not talking about print design or infographics. So I see that more as a holistic approach. And we see ourselves in a sweet spot between user experience design, interface design, and information design, and came up with that fancy name of information experience design. But this is true for the work that we do, I think. And I want to back up a little bit, because a while ago, like not that long ago, like 20 years or so, there was not really internet available at all, maybe 25 years. So there were the main standard media out there was newspapers, magazines, books, and television, of course. So the information that was surrounding us was there, but it was not a massive amount. And by now, it's completely different. There's like information everywhere, especially in the ages of mobile, internet. We have access to information wherever we are. So it's not longer the question if we can access this information. It's more a question of where or how to find it. And this is where design comes in and can be a tool and used as a filter to guide us to the information that is most relevant for the user and most important. And this is what we try to do with the designs that we create. And the function of information design, and this is also something that was said before, and it kind of goes back to that well-known sentence of form follows function. But first, I feel like it has to guide, it has to lead you towards the information you're looking for, but it also needs to entertain you. So this is the experience part. You should not be bored or like leave it right away, especially since information and data-heavy products are boring on the first front when you look at it right away, but you can make them really entertaining. But the most important part is really to inform, and not only to inform, but to deliver insights and really create value. So essentially, the user or the reader has to be smarter after looking at what you did. So he has to understand the problem better after looking at your design. So that also means that you should not go in and look at your data or look at your information and transform it one-to-one into a graphic, because that's just not creating any additional value, not informational value at least. So instead, I'd rather really like to inspire everybody to say, become an author and like really take responsibility for your topic and for your design. And by becoming an author, I mean really pick your topics that you think are worth talking about, where you think someone should do something in that area, or it would be really helpful for other people to have a tool in this area. And I think we as designers have that ability to do that, so I can really encourage everybody to say, become an author, believe in your ideas, and do it. But that also means that you really have to dive deep into your information. You have to understand your project. You have to analyze. You have to interpret. You have to simplify. You have to show relations and pick the right topics out of it, and then combine it into something new, into new ways to visualize it, and highlight your findings, and then ultimately lead to this additional informational value. And I want to show a few case studies around information design that we used to do and still do every now and then, which were standard printed infographics. So just to show you where we're coming from. And we still do that every now and then, but by now like 90% of our jobs are really UX, UI driven. But it's still good to show that as the foundation, because the thinking behind it, I think, is pretty similar. So there is some more work that we did in that flow for all kind of different clients. And there's one specific work I still like to talk about, although it's really old. It's my diploma thesis, so back in 2009. And it was about the 10 largest cities in Germany, and I was trying to compare them just by their statistics. So I came up with with 10 magazines, so it was a magazine each for each city, and you could compare that. There was already a little bit of interactivity in it, because you could swap out the covers and look at the information. But what I really want to get at is that the way of thinking behind it is pretty much the same, no matter if it's print or if it's a digital product, because you have to understand your information and layer it in the right way and allow the user to dive deep into that information whenever he wants to. So on these spreads here, you see that we had different spreads for population, climate, I don't know, cultural things, and so on. And there was always graphics where you could go into detail, was really illustrational, but then there were also graphics like the one in the lower left here, which was a hexagon that was used for all cities to compare them. And so here you see the middle point is 0%, and then the outer corners are always like the 100%, meaning the city who has the most in that category has the 100%. So population, you see that spike here, that is Berlin. The green line is Hamburg in this case, because I'm from Hamburg. And the other corners are foreigners and unemployed people, pupils, students, and their spending power. And by just putting in the rare data here, while I was doing that graphic, I could see like, hey, wow, that's interesting. I can actually read things out of it because you create that shape for each city individually, and you can see similarities right away. And it was surprising to me to do that for all these different categories. Here it was obvious, for example, for Dortmund and Essen, because those are really close by and have a different kind of history. So it was expected, but for Frankfurt and Stuttgart, it really came as a surprise to me, and that went through all the different pages we did. And it's really a good thing that you see your information graphic works. It really helps you to understand the information better. But what I said before, I'm not talking only about infographics, because the next logical step really is adding that layer of interactivity, meaning UI, UX, because the thinking behind it is, as I already said, the same, and it just makes it a little bit more complex, because you're not dealing with static data any longer. You're not have your piece of paper and you know the ratio and everything, and your data is not changing, but now you're actually dealing with constantly changing data and user-generated content and all those things, which makes it more complicated, but also more challenging and therefore more fun, and what can come out of it is way more interesting. So we just did that for our website as a small little example, taking that graphic and make it interactive, so the user can actually drag and drop the categories in the different corners and then mouse over the map of Germany and highlight the different cities. So you could see that just by adding that extra layer of interactivity, it was a much richer tool. So, as I said, I don't think that information design equals infographics. I think this is something that still happens, that people picture information design as infographics, but for me, it's really more a way of thinking, and it works throughout all different medias. And here are some of the projects that we are working on or have been working on. We worked with some of the bigger American startups like Facebook and Airbnb, but also with smaller American startups who are really, really interesting to work with, and also work with bigger German companies. And it's an interesting mix of clients that we have. And but I also like to encourage people to think about their own project and do own things. And I really like this. This quote here: the best way to complain is to make things. That means once you see something that is bothering you, or you feel like, I can do that better, why not go out there and do it? And I still really try to do that as often as you can. Of course, it's a luxurious thing. You have to have the time and the resources to do it, but I think it's worth it to take the time to every now and then like pick your own product and build it and just do it. And this is something I did during my studies, so it's pretty old, but it shows you that apparently that was bothering me for a long time. Back then, there were no smartphones, anything available, but you still had to look when your train is leaving or when your bus is leaving. So you had timetables on every bus stop, and most of them were like really boring, just a list, and it was really hard to find the departure. So this was a concept to base it on an analog clock. But a few years later, I came back to that and decided we should build an app and make it better, because at the point being, there was nothing really out there who had a good approach of public transportation, like making public transportation easy to access. So it was 3 years ago, I think, that we started with it, or that we launched 3 years ago. And at that point, this was pretty much what was there in the App Store. It was just really, that's for Germany, it was really list-driven and not intuitive at all, and really boring. And Google Maps didn't work that well as it does today, and definitely not for Germany. So we decided we should build something that works throughout Germany for public transportation. So I just asked a friend of mine who was a developer if he'd be in to do that with me and create that app and actually bring it into the App Store, and we just share whatever comes out of it. So we ended up selling it for 99 cents, which turns out not to be the best business model, but I come to that later. So we started iterating and doing prototypes and testing, and then fortunately it didn't take us that long to get to a satisfying solution, and it was mainly based on a map, so you see your current location, and from there you can dive deeper into your information. So if you just want to look if you can still catch the bus that is leaving and the next stop, you just click on the bus stop right next to you, and you see when the train or when the bus is leaving. But from there, you can go deeper and see when other trains or buses are leaving, or you can look at connections and look at the map, how they ride and how you can catch them. And of course, there are more and more other screens that we had to design for it. And we also, after a while, started to design a new version of it, which is Nextr 2.0. Unfortunately, it will never make it to the App Store because it's not really paying that much. I don't want to say only money, but it's just not really worth it to invest the time because there's no real business model behind it. So our developers didn't have the time to do it any longer. So we said, okay, we have to stop it. So it's nice that we have the designs and everything ready for that second version. But in the end, it still has to create value for us. And unfortunately, it didn't do that any longer. But what we learned from it is really that launching your own product is like having a baby. Maybe it's a little not that hard, but anyway, you're responsible for everything that happens, for everything that it does. Once you release it, it's out there, and there are consumers looking at it, working with it, and you have to sign up for it. You have to listen to your customers. And I mean, usually there's the designer and the consumer, and then there's the client in between the two of you. It's almost like a filter, because it's rarely that the designer is like in contact with the actual users, at least not when it comes to feedback mails and all those things. You actually have to have a support team and everything. So once this client, I had to use one of the cheesy keynote animations there. Wait, I'll do it again. Awesome. Yeah, that's worth it. So now you're in direct contact with your client, or sorry, with your consumer. And for us, that was really overwhelming. It was actually really successful when we launched. We had like 5,000 downloads or so the first day, and it was not for free. So we were best-selling app, or second best-selling app after WhatsApp in the German App Store. So we were overwhelmed by that flood of feedback and stuff that came to us, and we didn't really know how to deal with it. And there were so many people complaining, and once something goes wrong, because now you have people dealing with your app, and for once it was good to see that a lot of people also came back with positive feedback and saying, hey, that's really helpful, it's great, but could you improve this and that? But there were other people who were like, this is shit, give us our money back, and we're like, okay, that's like 99 cents, but okay. But when something goes wrong in your app, you really have to consider that this confuses the user, and it can lead to all kinds of things. I mean, here the worst case scenario is that he might not find the right train for him, and it causes him a delay. But that could mean he maybe don't get in time to his interview that was really important or something like that. And if you scale that up for other projects, that could be really, really important. So you see that responsibility is a big thing there. You actually now dealing with individuals out there who use your product, which is great, but also are really, really aware of that and telling you how they feel. And this leads back to you and gives you bad feedback, and then you have bad decisions in the App Store, and people not buying your app any longer. So it's a process, but you learn through it. But as I said before, we're shutting it down, unfortunately. So at least we're not developing it any longer and don't do support any longer because it's just eating too much of our time. But the termination of a product doesn't mean that it was a failure, because for us, it was successful, not when you look at the economics, but for us, just having this experience, this is also something we could share with clients of ours now, because we had that same experience of launching an app and really being there, talking to the actual customer. So for us, it was not a failure. It was really an experience, and that led to other motivation for us, because we saw it is working and it's great to have it out there, and it's exciting to see people really value what you did there. And as of now, we have a new idea and working on a new app, and this time we're kind of like going all in and really investing more time and also investing money, which is of course a risk, because it can turn out that it's just not catching up and it won't return any money. But we're still trying it, and unfortunately I can't tell what it is yet, but we'll hope to launch in August. And this is kind of like a spin-off startup that is coming out of our design studio. And we'll try to look into those kind of projects, because I really think it is a great possibility for a designer to come up with products on your own. Now that we're in the digital age, you can do software products. You don't have to have, like, I don't know, a supply chain or anything. All of that is out there. You can just create something digital, make it work, and put it out there and share it with the world and see how people react to it. So this leads me to another case study I'd like to talk about. This is an infotainment concept we did for Tesla. When I say we did it for Tesla, it's not that Tesla came to us and asked us to do it. We just did it as a starting point, because at the time being, or that's still true, the status quo of infotainment systems in cars is pretty horrible. It's getting better, so there are actually companies catching up, and I think they understand the value of that even more now. But still, definitely from a visual perspective, it looks like it's 10 years old or even older. And also from the structure, how it works and how it behaves, it feels like really old, and especially to people who are used to work with smartphones and tablets and all of these gadgets who work really well. It's ridiculous that you get in your car and it feels like you're 10 years back. The future might look like this. Often those concepts that are shown on trade shows and so on are more like just eye candy. I mean, none of that is really useful. I'd still like to see a map that doesn't look like Tron or whatever, or have like lights all over my dashboard. Don't get me wrong, there are some interesting concepts out there, and as I said, it's getting better and better and better. So we did that over a year ago now. But still, what I said before is true here. Like, the best way to complain is to make things, and now there is something for the Asterix. It's maybe a little bit too small. So even if you just have not enough time and just a few weeks to do a rough concept, we still thought it's worth doing that and just give it a try. Because we understand, of course, to create something like that, you have to have way more time and have to do a lot of testing and iterating, and it can take years. But still, we thought we'd just give it a try and see what we can do in like 2 or 3 weeks beside our actual product or our actual clients. So we first had to make this decision of whether we wanted to do physical buttons, haptic feedback, or just a touchscreen. And the main reason why we decided to go with a touchscreen was that we don't have any industrial product design skills. And I still believe that there is a good reason to have physical buttons for specific features and for specific things. But since we are digital visual designers, we decided to go with a touchscreen first. And since Tesla has definitely the best hardware on the market, because they have a huge touchscreen in their car, it's a 70-inch screen, it's even a little bigger, and if you sit in the car, it's like really massive. But still, their UI doesn't hold up with the idea of Tesla. I mean, Tesla is really innovative and new and young, but their design, I don't know, it looks pretty weird. You have this shiny buttons there, and you have these really colorful icons on the top, and it feels like someone threw together a lot of stuff. So we started to design for it, and this is kind of like what came out of it, but I'm diving into that. So we decided to base that on a modular grid where you have different widgets that can adapt in size and in their position, and that you as a user have the ability to customize your dashboard in the way you really like it and in the way you want it, and can decide how big or how small the different widgets should be. And then once you find your perfect setting, you can save it and leave it as is. Of course, there are also other things that we had to design for, like the standard car controls and but here you see the ability that you could do a lot of different screens with it and can combine it. And later on, you see how that adapts to driving situations. But I want to show you a quick video. And I want to say beforehand that this is not supposed to happen all at a time. This video is just like giving you a broad overview of what can happen, because we got a lot of bad feedback, like, that's totally confusing if that's happened all the time. It's like, no, we're just showing the possibilities. So. Showing some of the interactions, and now that you can see that you also standardly search for something, then it's taken over the screen, and move your widgets. And we actually got a lot of critique, both positive and negative. The most negative feedback we got was that things are way too small and there's too much going on, and a lot of them are actually have a good point. So I'm not saying that this is the perfect solution and we could sell that right away. It's definitely not ready for the mass market yet. But still, there are a lot of things that you can consider and even improve based on this concept, which is, for example, the different multi-touch gestures. So instead of really having to hit your small button on the touch screen, you can, for example, just use 2 fingers to adjust the temperature. You just have to hit the area roughly where the temperature settings are and use 2 fingers to slide that up and down. Same is true for the fan who lives a little bit higher up. If you do 2 fingers swipe there, you adjust that. And you saw in the video already that the Lautstärke, yeah, I see that it's still in German, I'm sorry for that. That the volume you can control wherever you touch when you go up and down with your 2 fingers. And another thing that can be really helpful is that your screen adapts to different driving situations. So meaning when your car is stopping, you're parking, or you're at a stopping sign, it makes sense that you have access to all the different kind of functionality, like your phone and maybe even the browser. I'm not sure if you need that. But once you start driving, there's really just a few things that you need to be aware of, which is, of course, navigation, and then music, because that usually is while you're driving as well, and then the controls of your car and seeing how much you consume and so on. And then when you come to really specific places on the road, like where it's critical for navigation, that you have to take a left turn or something, just the navigation widget takes over the whole screen and shows you the right way to go. So if you want to take a left here, it takes over. Still pretty impressed by our keynote skills, though. Yeah, so, and what it also did is it created a lot of buzz. So, and as I said, not all of that was positive. There was also a lot of negative feedback, but there were big pages writing about it, like The Verge and Adobe tweeting it, and Kevin Ross, who has like 1.5 million followers or so. So it was really great, and it actually helped us to just get this conversation going. And you could see that there was a big demand for that, because people were apparently annoyed by what is out there and don't really like what was on the market. And as I said, there was negative feedback as well, which is totally legit. But it was just great to get that conversation going. And for us, it was also just a great marketing tool. We could like position ourselves in that field. And after that, got a lot of requests from, or at least a lot of contacts into that automotive industry and a lot of car makers. And we're actually about to start a project with a big German car company, which ties back to that project. And Tesla, oh, there's one more thing. So yeah, it spread very well on social channels, of course. So but Tesla actually got in touch with us 8 hours or so after we launched the story on Behance. So we got a mail from Tesla, and they asked me to come over and meet with them and talk about possibilities to work together. So I flew over, and it was actually really interesting to see how they work, and finding out that they, at that point, apparently only had like 4 guys or so worrying about everything UI, UX related, including their web page and stuff like that. I'm sure or positive that it's different by now. But a year back, it was like that. So that was interesting. Unfortunately, they were only interested in hiring someone full-time, and really someone who's there at their office working full-time with them, which makes sense, and I understand that, but I still don't want to give up my studio and want to switch over or move over to the Valley. So unfortunately, it didn't work out to work together, but it was still a great experience. And the last case study I'd like to talk about is a case study for Woop, and this time it's actually a real product. It's not like a concept or anything. So there are actually clients out there who value those kind of designs, and it's really possible to design that way. So Woop is another fitness tracker. That's what I first thought. But they actually have a completely different approach. Their main target group are professional athletes and coaches. So they developed a fitness tracker. I'm wearing one. That tracks way more physiological data. So it tracks your heart rate 24/7, and it tracks heart rate variability, which is the time that goes by between heartbeats, which tells you a lot about your recovery. And it tracks skin conductivity and temperature and all kinds of things. And when they first approached us, there was not a lot out there. There was just the 3 founders, and that was pretty much it. But they understood at that point already that the UI UX designer, whoever they will hire, should be a really integral part of the product. And this was really unique for us because they came to us and told us there's nothing existing yet. We don't have we do have some prototypes for the bracelet, but there's nothing more than the idea, and we want the designer to start as early as possible, and you're the man. So Will Ahmed, the founder, even flew over to Hamburg to convince me to work with them, where I was like, of course, really impressed. And after talking to him, I was totally sold. I was like, that's awesome. We can gather so much great data, and it's awesome to design for that. Of course, I had some concerns also about like data privacy and so on, but since it's really focused for a professional athlete market, their body kind of like how they make money, and they have their team doctors who track all their information anyway, so it's less of a concern there. But yeah, so it was important that that all of us were really deep inside of the project, and so we're in touch very frequently. We Skype almost daily. I'm in Boston very frequently, so it was built out of Harvard. And we were even part of the discussion when it came to building the actual device, so doing the industrial design. So you see up here was a meeting in New York with Aro Leiden, who's a really great industrial design agency, who came up with the industrial design for the bracelet. But we started with UX first so that the hardware was actually following some of our software rules, which is pretty unique, I think, but this is the way it should go by now. And they come up with a pretty cool concept that since this device is supposed to track your heart rate 24/7, so you're not supposed to take it off, they actually developed a system that you can slide on a battery and that charges your bracelet. And you could even slide on a head after a while with a display that displays the information, but all the important sensors are in the bracelet right away. So that was a pretty unique start for that, and a unique idea, and we were there while this idea was born. And by now, there are actually a lot of users out there, actual professional athletes using it. But before we could communicate that information, we'd really have to become an expert. I mean, when they first approached that, I had no idea about heart rate data and what you can read out of heart rate data or what heart rate variability even means. So you really have to become an expert and dive deep into this information before you can communicate it back to others. Because how will you ever explain it to someone else if you don't understand it yourself? So yeah, we did a lot of testing, iterating, and worked on a lot of different flowcharts and for different platforms, of course, mobile, web, and even the bracelet itself, and so all kinds of screen sizes, and it was really challenging, but also a lot of fun. And we stumbled across so many different design directions, so this is just a variation of designs that never made it into the actual product, but there are pieces in every one of them that made its way to the actual product at the end. It's just like it helped us a lot to go into visual design quite early, because that helped us to find out, is this really working? Is this really understandable for the user? So fortunately, we had the time to do all that, because of course, taking that time means it costs money. But Will and Woop understood right away that this is important, and we have to go through this process to come to a satisfying solution, and this is what we did. And then when we had the time, we even redesigned like all the different sports icons. We should maybe try to get them into the Olympics, because I think they're pretty cool. We even did that for a lot of other activities like yard work and dancing and whatever, because those things raise your heart rate as well and count as strain on your body too. So by now we have a platform out there that is really working and has been used by professional athletes across all the different American pro sports league and across college leagues, and even some Olympians wearing it. And it's really great to see that there are finally users out there engaging with your project and understanding the information. But we had to find a way to make that huge amount of data that we collect make that interactable and help the user understand that and layer it into different layers. No, so like we had to bring it down to what is most important, what are the main things that the user should focus on first, and those are actually the 3 pillars of strain. So how much strain do I put on my body? Recovery, so how well am I prepared and how much strain can I actually accept on that day? And of course sleep, and the sleep affects the recovery, of course, so they're all tied together. So here you see how the app is structured. So we have those three main pillars of your strain score, your recovery score that you get every morning based on a few metrics, and you have your sleep data. And there you saw that you can dive into the information if you want to know more, and then actually look at your heart rate. Or if you tilt your phone, you see your heart rate over the day and see where you had workouts and where you were sleeping. And this layering kind of helps to go deeper and deeper into the information if you really want to. So here you're zooming into one of the workouts and see how it worked out and stuff like that. And same is true for the website, which has those main pillars there on top. And on the overview, you have, of course, since you have more real estate, you can present more information at a glance and really look at your heart rate and look at different percent of max and how often you're in which heart rate zone and look also at trends. So look how I'm performing over time, how's my recovery behaving, how's my recovery comparing to my strain. So meaning when I'm really well recovered, this is where I should work out. When I'm run down, I should take it low. And also look at my sleep data when I'm in deep sleep, in REM sleep, and here you see what I was talking about, the comparison of intensity and recovery, and creating a day picker, and a lot of stuff that we did there. And what you didn't see in that video yet was the coaching part of it. Because for coaches, this is also really, really unique and really interesting to monitor their team and to look at the averages of their team and seeing like that most of my team is run down. I should maybe give them a day of rest or like schedule my training accordingly to fit their needs. And it really helps coaches. So we got a lot of great feedback from coaches coming back to us, telling us that, hey, Michael Phelps, for example, is wearing one, and the coach got back to us and told us, like, Michael recovery was red this morning, it was really run down, so we decided to give him a day off, and the day afterwards, his recovery was well better, and he got back doing training, and he really was on a peak level. So there was a great feedback because it told us, or it showed us that what we came up with actually works, and this is kind of like the greatest feedback you can get as a designer. And there are also other small little tools, like the sleep coach that is trying to help you to understand how or when I should go to bed, or first of all, explaining to you that time in bed isn't equal with the time you're sleeping, because you usually lose around an hour or so every night. So this is all of these little findings that we communicate back to the user, helps them to understand their body and helps them to improve. And one thing that Nick was saying earlier, I think was really great, this circle that you're in, instead of just launching and then you're out. This is a great example here that we are launching features and features time after time and staying with them and working so closely. And I think you have to work like this with a client like this. And for us, it's been like really an awesome time, and I can't value enough how great of a client Woop and Will is. And they really value our opinion and give us the time to iterate on those things and create new features, new tools, and keep the ball rolling. And as I said, by now we have like a lot of actual professional athletes out there using it. LeBron James is also wearing one, which is pretty cool, and a lot of other NBA players are now wearing it, and we're getting a little buzz now on the sports networks. But what was really great to see was that design can actually change the user's behavior. So by presenting it in the right way, it can have an impact on their lives even. And we recently got a study back from a group of Harvard students that were wearing the device for a long time now. And I mean, in the US, college sports is like professional sports. It's not like a small thing. It's really big. And so we talked to I don't know how many there were, but on day 129 of those Harvard athletes using the bracelet, we saw changes in their behavior. For example, they dedicated an additional 41 minutes to their sleep per night, which is huge. I mean, that's almost an hour, not really, but 41 minutes per night earlier going to bed. This is huge, and this is what I was saying before. It shows that they understood that time in bed doesn't equal sleep time. So they reacted to that. And same is true for drinking caffeinated beverages before bed. It's 86% less often because, of course, that is bad for your sleep. Same is true for alcohol, of course. Consuming alcohol before bed, 79% less often. I don't think that's true for me because I'm wearing one too, but I'm not a professional athlete, so I think that's fine. And also using a screen device in bed 20% less often. because that has also an impact on how you sleep. So with this, I slowly like to come to an end because, as I said, I think it's really engaging and really interesting for us to see how that works. And it's far from being done. There's still a lot of issues and a lot of errors that we have to deal with, but that's part of the process, and that actually is what makes it fun too. And kind of like a little look into the future. So what's next? And the good thing is, I feel like there are endless possibilities because there's so many areas where design hasn't really scratched the surface yet. I mean, like in science and research and medicine and so on, there's so much where design can have a huge impact. And I think it's slowly starting that people in those areas understand that, and that more and more designers or creative people are even coming into positions where they can make actual decisions, so coming in the management level. And I think this is we won't stop that, especially since we saw that today there's UX and UI everywhere in so many everyday lives products, and I think that'll just increase. And so it's an exciting time to be a UX UI designer, and with this bright look into the future, I'd like to come to an end and say thanks for your attention. Oh.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sorry.
Yes, I have only one question. Have you done any user research for Tesla case study?
No, we haven't, which is actually weird to say, because I know I'm aware that you should do that before you approach a project like that. But since we only had a really short amount of time and we
Reality.
good excuse, I know.
Okay,
No, it's just reality. It's our reality.
But
we
it
can
was,
talk
I
about
mean,
responsibility.
as I said, this was far from being like the perfect solution and far from being done. It was just a concept to look into what you can do even with very little time and very little resources. And of course, user testing and user research would be a huge part of a project if that would become a real project. But no, unfortunately, we didn't do that.
Are we talking about the same Tesla?
Yes,
Okay.
I think so.
Small resources, little team.
No, I mean, if it were a real product,
Okay,
if Tesla
yeah.
would be willing to work with us and pay for it,
Okay,
of course we'd do all of that.
Okay.
Yeah, and we also have to consider that we're still a quite small studio, so we don't really have any researchers in-house. The upside for us with a few of our clients, like Woop, for example, they do have those people on their team, and they report back to us. And same is true for other startups and clients that we are working with. So that's pretty cool too. But yeah, that's definitely one of the next thing that we should consider, like bringing people from this expertise into our agency.
Okay, I had small additional question. Were you prototyping, for example, sitting in the car and trying to guess what would be user behavior?
Yeah. At least we tried that. We weren't
Okay.
sitting in the car because unfortunately we didn't have a Tesla. But we used monitors like 17-inch monitors and tilted it upwards, and we're looking at the dimensions and seeing how big things should be. Of course, it's different when you're actually driving and know the exact distance that you have and your hand has. So we tried to demo that as good as possible, but yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Who would like to ask Martin's second question? There was a gentleman there. I can't see nothing.
There's another one.
Because of the light. Yeah, there's a
Hey.
person sitting there.
Hey.
How did you manage to spread the word about this concept? Like, how did you seed the information online to make it viral?
I mean, how we managed that it worked?
Yeah,
that
like,
way?
where did you post this concept so
I mean,
that
of course,
it
it's
became
really hard to control.
viral?
It's hard to control that how it actually spreads. But we mainly use Behance and Dribble, like the well-known portfolio sites out there. And fortunately, we have a pretty good standing, especially on Behance. We're like 140,000 followers or so. So once we post something there, there's a good chance that a few people see it and write about it. And of course, we understood that Tesla is like a hot topic to talk about. So it was definitely calculated that something like that might happen, but you couldn't control it. For us, it was really fortunate that companies like The Verge just so picked it up and talked about it and write about it. But you can't really control that. Although, I mean, what you control is how you present it, and it's definitely worth like investing time into how you present your work, and then like for example doing a little video of showing the animations that adds so much more. And for us, of course, there was extra work, but it was just done for that presentation. But in the end, it's really helpful because it's way easier to share a video like that and explain the concept very fast, other than just having static images.
Thanks.
And there's one more here.
Hello, Martin. Huge fan. Really impressed what you've showed today. Really, really nice. My question is like, I do believe that visualizing data is a really challenging thing because not only you have to understand, basic principles about the, design, but also, how you actually analyze the data. I actually seen many times, designers like showing sales growth on the donut chart. You see not many people laughing actually. So can you tell me? Do you kind of like reflect that in your team? Like, do you have like different skills that you're trying to gather in your team? Like, I don't know, do you have like, people with that strong analytical background, just designers, or you're looking for people like with these cross skills? How do you organize your team, your studio?
Yeah, it's a little mixed. So we don't have any like analytics experts or so. It's really me who drives that part because I always had a thing for numbers compared with design, like actually visualizing data. And I wouldn't say I really learned it. I was just like, I always had a thing for this kind of design. And fortunately, I'm not bad at math, so that definitely helps. And I think that's also quite unique for a designer. But often designers, that might be a stereotype though. But anyway, the rest of my team a lot of them are definitely more coming from a standard UI, UX expertise. We do have developers though as well, which also bring in that more mathematical background, which is definitely helpful. And we like to involve everybody in the team to talk about projects like that and get everyone's opinion, because even it's helpful to have someone who's not really an expert in that field and just get his opinion. And we try to do that as much as possible. But again, we're still quite small, so we have 4 people full-time and have another 4 to 5 freelancers working with us, so it's still on a very small level.
You make really beautiful products.
Thank you. Appreciate
Today? Yeah. Any other questions? We got time for just one more question. No? So let's thank Martin for this presentation.
Thank you.
Did you like it? You like it?